Today on a Dr. Phil exclusive, when a family member went missing,
Texting, calling, he was not to be found.
they suspected this church.
The Church of Wells has been accused of brainwashing, drugging.
They claim when they found him,
How did he look?
His hair was a mess, dark circles like around his eyes.
he wasn't the same.
Was there a shift in personality?
It sounded like he already drank the Kool-Aid.
Now,
The church is a cult, in my belief. I am convinced that I was drugged.
Jordan is here and says it is a miracle that he made it out at all.
his shocking allegations.
They gave you a bottle of water. You think there was something in that water, right?
I remember my head just going straight back, and I was out.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today's going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. Well, in the tiny town of Wells, Texas, stands a large, bare wooden church, which is home to a highly controversial evangelical group that some are calling a dangerous cult. Now, run by 3 young men who call themselves the Elders, the Church of Wells has approximately 80 members. The men dress in plaid shirts, the women in long, modest dresses, and they live together in a compound comprised of log cabins. The Church of Wells has been accused of drugging, starving, brainwashing, and forcing their members to sever ties with their families. The Church of Wells, of course, denies these allegations, yet people in this small town have reportedly said lots of people come looking for their missing kids right there. Take a look.
A religious group in one small Texas town has residents there concerned.
The church, some believe, is really a cult. Its members dangerous.
Tonight, a Georgetown family is pleading for their son to return home. He was last seen on 6th Street in downtown Austin on Halloween.
3 Waco College students founded the Church of Wells in 2010.
The members of the Church of Wells, based in the small East Texas town of Wells, believe they are the true practitioners of Christianity.
I believe we're truly confronting the powers of darkness that are hovering over this land.
The group believes itself to be the world's only true Christians, while everyone else is condemned to hell. It seemed that 27-year-old Catherine Grove had it all: a devout and loving Christian family and a promising career in nursing. But she disappeared from her Northwest Arkansas home. Patty and Andy Grove worried their daughter had been abducted. Then 5 days later, Catherine finally called from a town 380 miles away.
She goes, "Hi, Mom. I'm with a group of people that are taking good care of me, but I can't listen to you and Dad anymore, Mom. I'm in Wells, Texas."
Wells, Texas, population 800, a town of cattle and lumber. The Groves came here looking for their daughter, but instead they found an even bigger mystery.
The search dogs found her alone in the woods carrying a backpack full of clothes. Her parents say police returned her to the church. Then, the last phone call from Catherine.
She goes, "Mom, Catherine's dead."
The call left the Groves chilled and wondering if this is a test of faith, then what exactly happened to their daughter?
Well, today, in an exclusive interview, Jordan Reichenberger, 27-year-old minister and street preacher, disappeared from downtown Austin. His mother, Kim, and brother, Ian, say they feared the worst, but after days of searching, Jordan was eventually located at the Church of Wells. From what we have uncovered during our research, the Church of Wells appears to approach people who are already extremely religious and convinces them they are not saved, and only their church can lead them to salvation. Take a look.
Jordan went missing on Halloween night of 2016. He has a ministry called Jesus Crew that he goes to downtown Austin and just shares with folks as they're walking by.
There were about 30 so members of the Church of Wells, street evangelizing as well, and he ended up meeting them. I didn't hear from Jordan. He hadn't returned home for 2 nights.
We just assembled an army of people to go and look for him.
The police were able to find out that Jordan's cell phone had pinged outside of some tiny town 2 hours east of Austin.
Police and family worried that the 27-year-old had been either killed or kidnapped, but today they learned that he had last been seen on this street corner meeting with a stranger, and now they fear that he is under the control of an alleged cult.
I feared the worst. One of the bars gave us hours and hours of security camera footage.
Yeah, so this security camera right here caught him like right in front of this restaurant at about like 3 in the morning. He left with some guy that we saw in a YouTube video preaching wearing a plaid shirt.
The plaid shirts that these folks wear is a trademark of the Church of Wells.
I got on the computer and I searched, I typed in the Church of Wells to learn more about who they are. I was able to find some information about Catherine Grove and how they do things and the controversy all around them.
Jordan called me 3 days after he left. He just sounded off to me. I asked Jordan, when are you coming home? And he told me, I don't think it's my time to come home yet.
And I said, hey, these people are kooks, get out of there. So 5 days after his disappearance, we sent a group.
When we finally got to the Church of Wells, I describe it as a time warp back to the 1700s. The 2 members who we talked to on the phone stepped outside with their Bibles in hand. They just stared at us and stood one on each side of my brother, like they were protecting him from us. And finally, after 4 hours of debate, we asked him if he would come home, and he agreed to.
When Jordan walked in the door, all I could do was hug him and cry. He looked like hell. I put my hands and I said, Jordan, where are you? Are you in there? I knew it had to be more than just mind control and manipulation. I believe that they drugged my son. We did a hair follicle test, and the test showed that he had doxylamine in his system, which is an over-the-counter sleep aid, and Parasprotol, which is a prescription-only muscle relaxant.
Well, we're going to actually talk to Jordan in a few minutes, but first I wanted to talk to you to find out what your experience of this has been and really what happened, how this whole thing went down. Now, I understand that Jordan was in Austin and he was on the street because he likes to reach out to people and talk about his religion and share with people that are just on the street. And that's what he was doing when they approached him, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
When did you first realize he's gone, he's missing? How did you find that out, and when did you first realize it?
I got a phone call from our dad, and he hadn't seen him in about 2 nights. And I was thinking, oh, he's probably just, at a friend's house or something. And
but that's out of pattern.
Yes.
Yeah, that's out of pattern. And I realized, oh, wait a second. He went downtown on Halloween, and we haven't seen him since.
Right.
So that's when it was like, okay, what is going on?
So you started checking his phone.
Yes.
And you say the last phone ping was at 4 a.m. Halloween night, what would have been the next morning, hours east of Austin, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So he's obviously headed way out of Austin.
Yes.
Okay. And you got security footage from one of the bars on the street?
Yeah.
And what did you see?
The security cam footage, we saw him standing there with this young man in a plaid shirt.
Was he on 6th Street?
Yeah, he was on 6th Street, 6th Street, downtown Austin.
Yeah,
and
for those, Austin, 6th Street is the happening place. That's where all the live music and it's kind of the main drag in 6th Street. So he was down there where the action was, a lot of traffic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you figured he went willingly with somebody, and you see him on the tape, right?
Yeah, we see him walking with this gentleman, and so in those 2 days, I was trying to think. I was like, maybe he gave this person a ride to where they live and he's still with them. Like, it didn't make sense to me. I was
One
like,
person or two people?
He actually did leave with two of them in his vehicle.
Okay. You have a friend that's an expert with missing people, right? And what did you find out? What did you learn there?
So I called her and I described like the situation. We had seen a YouTube video of downtown 6th Street of this same man actually yelling at people, telling them, they need to fear God, they're gonna burn in hell and stuff. And then how we saw my brother leaving with this guy who's like screaming and yelling at people. And so when I told her that, she's like, oh, that sounds like the Church of Wells. He met these fellow believers downtown Austin, and he decided to go with them. And I would say it sounded like he already drank the Kool-Aid.
And later, do you believe there is an effort towards mind control?
Absolutely. It's like, give us our kid back. And the church would say, oh, look how angry your family is. You really want to go with them?
Did it surprise you that your son would leave with someone?
Yes, that is something that he wouldn't do. He has too many things to anchor him in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
He has a cat. He plays guitar on his worship team. He's done that for 7 years. He was working as a job coach for developmentally disabled people. Very good at what he did.
Yeah. So you're surprised. So obviously you call him, right? What happens when you ring his phone?
Nothing.
Just
dead? Voicemail?
Dead.
What?
Voicemail, yeah, straight
Texting,
to voicemail. Yeah.
calling, nothing. He was not to be found.
Okay, but you did get a call from him.
Yes, finally, it was, I guess, 3 days later, like after he went missing, my friend who's the expert in missing people, she said, you'll probably hear from him today. And then sure enough, I did. He called me, and I was just like, Jordan, like, the whole world's been looking for you.
Was he himself? Was he upset? Was he calm, excited?
He was really calm, like extremely
Unusually
calm.
calm.
Like, I'm like in a panic, like, I thought my brother was dead, for a few days, and then.
So the phone rings, you say hello. Did it come up with his ID in the phone?
Yeah, he called.
So
from
you
his
knew it
phone.
was him?
I knew it was him, yeah.
What was the first thing he said to you?
He was just like, hey, bro, like, how's it going? And I'm like, it's all right. Like, we've been worried about you. We're trying to figure out what happened to you. And
what was his explanation of where he was and why he was there?
He said he met these fellow believers downtown Austin, and they told him they were following Christ, and they asked him if he wanted to go with them. And he decided to go with them and drove them 4 hours in the middle of the night. And
was there a shift in personality at that point? Was it different than you normally experienced him?
Yes, I would say I used the saying. I would say it sounded like he already drank the Kool-Aid, is how I described it, because he sounded so like, yeah, I'm at this place and it's so great. And I'm like, no, that's not great. And
did he tell you he was at the Church of Wells?
Yeah, Church of Wells, yeah.
Did you talk to anybody at the church?
Not over going out there days later, or I guess the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did speak to individuals there at that point. So.
All right, so you talked to two people there. You talked to Mark and Richard.
Yes, Mark and.
Okay. At that point, because you talked to your friend who, I mean, she spotted plaid shirt, said Church of Wells.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Why was this on her radar?
She's dealt with them before. She's tried to help get other people out of there, because I'd never even heard about them until that moment. And you saw on there when I looked up their website, just like the red flags were flying. I was like, this is not somewhere my brother should be, personally.
All right, well, let's take a break. He spent 5 days living with the mysterious Church of Wells in Texas. I say mysterious because they had a hard time finding out what was going on there. Jordan is here and says it is a miracle that he made it out at all. We'll talk to him about his experience when we come back and find out what went on inside the Church of Wells.
The Church of Wells is a cult, in my belief. They tend to disguise themselves as people who are running a legitimate ministry. People go there and are not heard from again. It was absolutely a miracle that I'm here to talk to you today. I remember my head just going straight back and I was out.
I would like the full force of the law to come down on the Church of Wells.
Facing a lot of these accusations, you don't want to clear your name?
The Lord will justify me.
Are you guys keeping people hostage?
Of course not.
No one can decide who is saved and who isn't. I want that place shut down, and I want justice.
Well, on Halloween 2016, ordained minister and street preacher Jordan Reichenberger disappeared from downtown Austin. Now, days later, his family finally heard from him. He called, and they learned that he was living with the Church of Wells. Now, after spending time inside, Jordan says he needs to warn others about what he claims he experienced. Take a look.
Halloween night, 2016, I was downtown Austin doing street ministry. That's when I first encountered members of the Church of Wells, and we started talking. They said, hey, we're doing what you're doing. We're following Jesus. Do you want to go with us? And I said, sure. So I agreed to head out to Wells. It seemed like I was with people who were really out there to make a difference. As we were walking in my car, they offered the bottle of water. I believe I was drugged. As we drove through the night out to Wells, they began to just kind of preach and preach. It was just relentless onslaught to the point where the words that he was saying didn't even make sense anymore. The compound was approximately a few acres. They had several log cabins. 70 to 80 members lived at their compound. Looking back in retrospect, it was certainly a red flag. As they began to show me around, the new members were already aware that I was there and were looking forward to meeting me. I've come to learn that cults tend to do what they call love bombing, where they continually make the new person that they've brought in feel loved so much more than the rest of your world. The Church of Wells is a cult, in my belief. They tend to disguise themselves as people who are running a legitimate ministry. I am convinced that I was drugged in my time at the Church of Wells. I remember in the middle of the day that I just completely passed out. One of the infant girls was left on a plastic lawn chair. Some of the men of the Church of Wells approached the baby. She's crying because her mom isn't there. And men begin to preach to the baby that you're learning patience and this is making you better and closer to God. I would have had to have been on drugs to be okay with that situation. On the third day, I'd finally gotten reception. I had no idea my family was looking for me. A lot of the calls and the texts started flooding in, explaining that it's a cult and that you should get out and that you're in danger. The very day that my family and friends drove up, during the initial meeting out in front of the cabin, it turned into a big debate. Mark and Rick began to talk and preach at my family, essentially trying to antagonize them. It sounded like two families arguing over custody. It was absolutely a miracle, without a shadow of a doubt, that I'm here to talk to you today. Because people don't just walk out of that place in the middle of the day. People go there and are not heard from again.
Okay, Jordan, we are glad to be talking to you today. And I want to be very clear that we have to address all of this as allegations because they have not been charged with wrongdoing, they've not been tried, they've not been convicted, so these are allegations. You are fully entitled to your opinion and entitled to describe your experiences, and that's what we want you to do. Now, you say that you drove 4 hours out of Austin and they gave you a bottle of water. You think there was something in that water, right?
It's very likely, yeah.
And you were drug tested. You said you did a hair follicle test and found 2 drugs. And were you on either of those drugs before you went to the Church of Wells?
None.
Did you have prescriptions for those drugs?
No.
Did you take those drugs recreationally on the street?
Never.
Or anything? So
he doesn't even take aspirin when he's got a headache.
And you have no history of taking those drugs since that time?
None whatsoever.
Okay, but you found them in your system, so you're concluding that he got them while he was there. And you said at one point you were just sitting on a couch in the middle of the day and just kind of fell over.
Like just knocked out. Like I remember my head just going straight back and I was out.
Is that typical for you?
I would say no.
When you got there, where did you go? You get out of the car, what do they do with you?
They took me up to their main cabin, and they showed me, you know, where they're at and where they do, you know, their thing. And they showed me a room off the back side of the cabin, and they said, "This is for you. You can stay here, and we'll see you tomorrow morning."
Do you believe that there is an effort towards mind control?
Absolutely.
And what are the efforts or techniques that you think are going on there?
It's kind of like a beratement of your character. It's a severe distortion of what the Word of God says.
You came in there with the position that you had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and that you were saved and you wanted to share that with other people. But their position is you're not saved unless you're saved here.
Exactly.
So they're critical of your faith and your beliefs, correct?
That's correct. They want to basically turn you into one of them, where there's no individuality anymore. It's more so that you fit what they want you to be.
But there are no fences there. You could have just walked off, right?
That's true.
You could have just called a cab and left. Why didn't you?
I didn't because I wanted to figure out why I was there.
All right, coming up, Jordan reveals how living inside the Church of Wells compound is like stepping back in time to the 1700s. That's coming up next. When you got there, how did he look?
He looked bad. I mean, his beard was all unkempt, like his hair was a mess. He's wearing like these clothes that are way too big for him. The look on his face, bizarre.
Closed captioning provided by...
I'm asking you to get off my property.
Shame on you. This is
stop.
church property, Matt.
Stop.
This is church property where I'm standing. Shame on you. Building a case, taking up a reproach against your neighbor. All we've ever done is done kind things for you, Matt.
I'm going to keep recording until the sheriff shows up.
Shame on you, Matt. Truly, shame. Jesus Christ leaps over your sin. And he's going to judge you, and your knee's going to bow before him on the day of judgment. And you've preached a false gospel that will not save your wife. It will not save your children, Matt. It's a false gospel. It's a gospel that does not set free
My
from
wife
sin.
and my children and I are asking you to stop speaking
Shame
to us,
on you.
turn around and go the other way.
Matt, you're leading them to hell. Richard.
I'm asking you to turn around.
You are sending your
and
family
go the
to
other
hell.
way.
Well, that video was shot by a neighbor showing a member of the Church of Wells preaching at him. Now, Jordan Reichenberger says he witnessed that firsthand when he spent 5 days living at the Church of Wells compound. Now, describe what's going on there.
That's a guy in a cult doing cult stuff.
Okay. Could you be more specific? So, I mean, this seems very aggressive.
It is.
And that's what you're saying people are subjected to.
Yeah. They really, really push like their indoctrination and how hard, you know, you really get to fall for what they're pushing.
You said there was a point at which there was a lawn chair and there was a baby in the lawn. How old is this baby?
Barely old enough to sit upright by herself.
And what, they were yelling at the baby like that?
It was like, you know, kind of like that calm, soothing, subdued kind of, you know, mannerism, and just saying, you know, oh, you're learning patience, you know, to an infant who can't even understand what she's being told.
But weren't there like 3 or 4 men, like, you know, the baby's alone crying. The mother just left the baby there.
Yeah,
and they're all like...
Where's the mother when this is going on?
She set her down and walked into the kitchen in the cabin at the lumberyard. And that's when the 3 men approached the baby.
So when you got there, how did he look?
He looked bad. I mean, his beard was all unkempt, like his hair was a mess. He's wearing like these clothes that are way too big for him, like, you know, looked like he'd just been doing like yard work for like, you know, 10 hours. And
They gave him different clothes to put on.
yeah.
I think it's weird.
And no, but one
big thing was, kind of hit the look on his face. He just looked like, just kind of like there was like a haze over his eyes, kind of, really like dark circles like around his eyes. Like he looked, I would say like sleep deprived, or like, he looked bizarre. Like he looked.
Well, and I don't know, I can't speak for them, of course, and they deny all of this. And then they start questioning all your ties to the outside world, right? Mm-hmm. And they start questioning your relationship with your family. Mm-hmm. What did they ask? How were they characterizing these relationships?
In general, with like our phone calls, they would say, your family's trying to deceive you. They don't really care about you. Look how much, we're caring about you and taking care of you while you're here.
But as someone that is well versed in the Scripture, and knowing that the Scripture supports the family, supports honoring your mother and father, supports unification of the family, how did that fit in your ear when they're telling you that, when they're alienating you from the family unit?
It was, like I said, it was difficult to kind of like figure out exactly what they were doing. A lot of this came up in hindsight, realizing, how they were phrasing it and how they were, trying to demonize my family.
Did you question that? Did you at any point say, you don't even know my family? How can you say that about my mother? You don't know her. Right. You don't know my brother. How can you do that?
It was fortunate that they couldn't really get anything on my mom. They really tried to, ham up the problems with my dad and my brother, because I would assume at one point or another, through all their interrogating, that they got dirt on my family and really tried to make that the way it was.
From you?
Right.
There was, sorry to interrupt, there was one point where it was the Thursday before we drove out there. We drove out there on a Friday. We were speaking to Jordan on speakerphone. We had like friends and family. There was like 10, 15, maybe 20 of us at our father's house talking to Jordan on speakerphone. And he was with Mark and Rick. And we're all like excited to hear from Jordan. We went days without hearing from him. And so on our side, we're like happy and like enthusiastic. And then their side was just like awed and like confused. And like anytime we'd ask Jordan a question, we'd hear like silence and kind of like whispering and like rustling, and then Jordan would answer. But then Mark and Rick would just try to I'm asking Jordan, like, when are we going to see you? We're trying to arrange to meet. And Mark's trying to ask me like, oh, Ian, I hear fear in your voice. And I'm like, no, Mark, I'm sorry. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to my brother. Like, he kept trying to like kind of control the conversation. And I'm like, no, like, and honestly, I'm glad that we met the huge network of people who have loved ones who are still at this place, and they told us what to expect. So we were really prepared for dealing with them, on the phone, and then dealing with them in person as well. After 2 hours of these guys preaching to us, which was like one of the most ridiculous moments of my life, I was just like, get me out of here. We already knew that they had been working on him to make him turn against his family.
Closed captioning provided by there were men and women there. We see in the pictures, I saw women there, and then I saw some of the elders, I guess. Do they keep them separated?
As far as like segregation goes, yeah, in general. And typically when women were there, they were seen and not heard. And so that was another thing that was becoming pretty suspect.
Television, telephone, internet? Did you have contact with the outside world while you were there?
I did, but it was very spotted. As far as like cell phone reception goes or anything like that out there, it's
like watch Dr. Phil. Because
we could have.
Yeah. Could you get on the internet and look up Church of Wells?
Yeah, they had computers and phones, and they even showed me their website while I was there, some of their videos, but it was all propaganda, things like that.
Did you think to go to a search engine and look them up and see what people were saying about them?
Didn't cross my mind at the time, and thank God for the family and their extensive research and detective work. because after we left, in the middle of the day, they just unloaded all the details and, everything that they knew.
And what was your reaction when you got away from there? And I assume that the fog began to lift after a period of time. How long was it before you started to kind of come out and see things clearly?
After we left and drove out to the restaurant, it was probably about an hour and a half that I started feeling like myself again.
Okay. So you ate some food, you drank some water, you started to feel clear.
Yeah.
And then they started to download you on, let me take a look where you've been, what people are saying about where you've been.
Right.
What did you think?
I was like, let's go home.
Did you see it differently at the time? I mean, when you got that information, did some of what you had experienced start making sense in a different way?
At least a little bit. It was like still coming out of it. I wasn't 100% sure until after we had gotten home and I talked to even more private investigators and other people who had dealt with them, that it became very apparent how great.
Well, let's talk about that, because you did get there. You go to pick them. Who all went?
So it was myself, our dad, like 4 of his closest friends, 2 of our friends. They brought their infant daughter and their dog, and then our secret weapon was probably Jordan's mentor, this gentleman named Jose, who, because we already knew that they had been working on him to make him turn against his family, and what other families had told us is like, where other families had failed, unfortunately, which is horrible, that their loved one's still there, is like the church would, so say a family comes and they're, mad as hell, it's like, give us our kid back, and, guns blazing, and the church would say, oh, look how angry your family is. They're so angry and hateful, you really want to go with them? Like, we love you, everything's cool here. And so we made sure, we brought like an arsenal of just, love and family. Like I said, we brought an infant and a dog. Like, they didn't know what to think when the dog got out of the car. Like, they were like, what is going on here? Like they were, they were ready to twist our words. We were able to get through to him. And so he didn't actually agree to go back home with you. You just got him to agree to go to dinner. Yes. After 2 hours of these guys preaching to us in the cabin, which was like one of the most ridiculous moments of my life. I was just like, get me out of here. I was like, Jordan, do you want to go get something to eat, like in town, not here? Can we like please like talk to you, like not have to deal with this anymore? And he agreed. And so there was like six of us at the time, because a few of them had gone ahead. So all 6 of us could have fit in my dad's truck. But I made sure to go over to my brother's car. It's like, let's just take your car. We'll take 2 cars, because we're not coming back. Like, we're like, and I think he thought he was, I think he even told them, I'll be back. They were all like freaked out. Honestly, they said, I don't know if they said something like, oh, you can't leave with him, or are you leaving? They were all freaked out. And, at the time, it's like, you've known him for 4 days. He's been my brother for 25 years. Like,
The very reason why I didn't go, because I love God with all my heart, but I would not have been very Christian-like if I would have gone there, because I would have wanted to rip someone's head off.
Yeah.
He was asking questions like, do you think your family is strong enough to abduct you? They, come with violence or anything like that?
They just like stared at us. And then they step around us and walk over to Jordan and stand right next to him, like they're protecting him from us.
Here's a picture of the 3 elders. Did you interact with all 3 of these people when you were there?
No. I only recognize Ryan on the right, and I might have met the guy in the middle.
Okay. So what was Ryan, the one on the right with the beard, on our right? Okay, what was he like?
He was very calm, collected, talked like, he was somebody in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember before the family came to get me out of there, that he actually spoke to me on the phone, of all things. He was in the next, the cabin next to us. And he was asking questions like, do you think your family is strong enough to abduct you? And do you think, you know, they would pose a threat to anyone. Would they, you know, come with violence or anything like that? And, you know, at the time I remember just kind of like dismissing that, you know, like he was just concerned for me, but it became apparent exactly what he was asking me.
But he's calling you on the phone from next door?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't come out when the family was there? Y'all didn't? Who did you talk to?
Well, actually, no. Yeah, the one with the little bit of facial hair we met when we pulled up. Like, we weren't exactly sure where to go, and he was sitting on the steps of the chapel, and we got out and talked to him for just like a minute. He introduced himself, and I just asked. I was like, "Where's Jordan?" He's like, "Oh, he's up there." Then we drove up to where Jordan was. I think it was at Mark or Rick's cabin, and that's when he came out, and we all gave Jordan a big hug. And then maybe a minute later, Mark and Rick stepped out with their Bibles, you know, ready to, you know, preach to the unbelievers. And our dad and I, we just kind of like intercepted them. Like, we kind of just walked over to them and we're like, "Hey, you know, we just drove 4 hours to see Jordan. You know, we thought he was dead. We had no idea where he was. We'd appreciate it if you just give us a moment to speak to him, you know, alone." And they just like stared at us, just didn't even say a word. They, you know, just like looked in our eyes, and we're like, and then they step around us and walk over to Jordan and stand right next to him, like they're protecting him from us. I'm like, it was ridiculous. And like, and then, you know, like I said, you know, then we had the 2-hour preach fest in the cabin, and then finally, after all that, we were able to convince Jordan to go get something to eat.
Coming up, Catherine Grove disappeared suddenly in 2013. Her parents claim she's been manipulated and brainwashed by the Church of Wells and describe her as zombie-like now. Catherine and the church say she's there willingly, and she's still there. We're going to talk about her story next, and I would like for y'all to stay and help us work through this as well. We'll be right back.
Catherine went missing 4.5 years ago.
Many families come to Wells looking for their kids.
Their eyes would begin shaking and vibrating like a zombie stare.
I started wondering, could Catherine be brainwashed?
Who are these people?
Closed captioning provided by We've run out of time for today, but we have so much more to cover. We're going to meet a family who says their daughter abandoned them and everything she knows to join the controversial Church of Wells. We're going to find out about her alleged attempts to escape, the 911 call, and the shocking dash cam video. Here's a look at what's in store. Take a look.
Tomorrow on Dr. Phil.
The Church of Wells are accused of kidnapping Catherine Grove.
They believe their daughter was brainwashed.
I want to be here at the church. Her eyes started shaking, vibrating back and forth.
We know that our daughter has tried to escape at least 4 times.
The police body cam footage.
I'm just trying to get help from her to get her right somewhere.
What goes on
The wives are not allowed to walk beside the husbands.
behind closed doors.
You think there was sleep deprivation with you?
Yes.
Tell me about this shed.
At night, you could hear them yelling at whoever they had in the shed.
They deny any wrongdoing. Have you seen Catherine?
I have. It's like you're no longer talking to a person, but more kind of like a zombie.
That's tomorrow.
You do not want to miss that. Plus, the pastor who lives right next door to the church and claims he has seen members enter a metal shed and not emerge for weeks at a time. What's going on in there? He says there is no doubt in his mind that he is living next door to a cult who use brainwashing to control their members. Now, I want to point out again, the Church of Wells denies any and all accusations against them. We reached out to them, and we did not receive a response back. We did speak to local police who did not want to give us a statement, but they did say, quote, "We haven't had any problems with the Church of Wells in years." We'll see you next time.